Hello, I'm SeafoodSource Editor Sean Murphy, and welcome to another edition of SeafoodSourceTV, the bi-weekly video blog where we bring you news, information, and insights into the world of the seafood industry. Traceability in the seafood industry is a perennial problem, but advocates have been calling for improvements in a louder and louder voice in recent years. Most notably, nonprofit environmental protection group Oceana grabbed the public's attention in 2013 with a scathing report on how often the wrong labels get onto a lot of fish in the American seafood industry. On the heels of that, reports starting in June 2013 from another NGO, the Environmental Justice Foundation, described in detail the degree of human slavery going on in the fishing industry in Thailand. Various media outlets reporting on the issue have noted that the poor traceability could lead buyers to mistakenly support deplorable behavior overseas. One group is trying to help improve traceability. The nonprofit Future of Fish recently introduced Getting There From Here. The guide offers advice and tips to the seafood industry on the best ways to make it easier to track product as it moves through the seafood supply chain. Joining us now via Skype from San Francisco, California to discuss the guide is Colleen Howell, who's a research co-director with Future of Fish. Colleen, good to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, before we get into the guide, let's just talk about traceability in general terms for a second, if we could. Talking about, again, mentioning the Oceana report, talking about traceability and the financial impacts and the potential impacts on American health and diet. Then, of course, there's the Environmental Justice Foundation report on slavery in the seafood supply chain. These are issues that we've been talking about a lot on Seafood Source, of course, but they're really not new issues, are they? I mean, Oceana I don't think they're the first people to talk about problems with traceability in the United States, and it's not really a huge shock to people that there are any kind of problems with labor issues in Southeast Asia. So I'm kind of curious, has your group seen any kind of change, real long-standing, lasting change in the mindset of the industry, or do you think this is just going to be kind of a flash in the pan?
That's a great question. Future of Fish was founded on the belief that entrepreneurship could save the oceans, essentially, and that is the creativity and innovation could be leveraged to reduce overfishing, to stop illegal fishing, to reduce mislabeling and other types of fraud. And what we found is that one of the sort of underlying causes or enablers of this is lack of transparency. And so over the last probably decade or so, we've been seeing more and more reports of this type of thing happening. And so I think that there's just growing awareness among the public and among those in the industry, and even within the supply chain, either CSR requirements or just the sense that there needs to be better efficiency within the industry is driving players to pursue traceability as part of their businesses. So I don't think this is a flash in the pan. I think that's something that's moving forward. And Obama's task force, the IUU on reducing the task force to reduce IUU fishing and improve traceability is another example of there just being a growing movement. So we're hopeful that this will really gain additional traction and that there can be widespread change.
Now, obviously, you guys have been connected with the seafood industry. You're talking with seafood industry leaders. What's been your take on the response to a lot of these media reports about traceability? I mean, are you sensing more people coming forward than you might have expected? You know, what are you seeing?
What we're seeing is a growing number of traceability technologies, traceability technology companies that are either coming to support the seafood industry in particular, or are traceability vendors that are now incorporating seafood. We're finding that there are entire supply chains that are being built around traceability. They tend to be small, but we've got dock to plate, full chain of custody, information, and then you've got other companies that say, look, I'd love to implement traceability technology, but I just can't do it. I don't have the money, I don't have the staff. We identified a number of these barriers in a report that it's not necessarily just a lack of a sense of return on investment, but that there are cultural barriers. So there's the lack of trust of new technology, lack of trust of competitors or even trading partners. The sense that I've done it this way for the last 50 years. Why should I change now? What worked then should be working now. And so the barriers to overcome in order to get widespread traceability, I think need to be tackled in a more collaborative and strategic way.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the guide for a second. Oh, one other thing. Regarding the industry in general, do you find that there are any species or sectors in particular that are particularly resistant or have particular amounts of difficulty in improving traceability widespread?
Well, anything that's traded internationally is going to be more difficult because you're dealing with imports and international waters and potentially having a supply chain that's crossing the globe or ocean several times. So just the complexity of that with up to 20 players touching a piece of fish is extremely difficult. The shorter your supply chain, the easier it's going to be to implement traceability technology. One of the other issues is that there are so many different solutions, and so if you have one supply chain player that's adopted one type of technology and another one's adopted another, and they're trying to trade with one another, you're going to have a problem with oftentimes with interoperability, that their systems just don't talk to one another. Okay. And so then another issue in terms of species is the fact that you have very small species like sardines or anchovies that are, or even salmon, which aren't small, that are net caught, and they might be offloaded in bulk onto a larger ship or onto a dock and then mixed with other species, and it's very difficult to be able to attach the point of origin, the name of the boat, the date it was caught, and then it's labor intensive to attach a barcode or another physical identifier to a piece of fish, and then expect that that information is going to flow through a long supply chain. So there's a number of logistical things that need to be overcome as well.
Can't always slap a sticker on a fish, so that's a bit of a problem. Let's talk about the guide for a second, because I was really interested about this when I saw it myself. It reminds me a little bit of a webinar we did not too long ago about the Thai seafood industry. We had Katrina Nakamura on from the Sustainability Incubator talking about a service that they had offered to try to help suppliers and buyers improve their supply chains. But your guide seems to be geared more, it's a downloadable guide. My understanding is it's free on the site, it's downloadable, and this seems like more of a resource for industry leaders to take away on their own to try to solve the problem on their own. Was that the intention behind it when you formed the guide?
It was, and actually when we first conceived of this idea, it was to create a white paper that outlined the benefits of traceability. So one of our assumptions was that one of the main barriers was the sense that traceability is a cost and it provides no benefit. Well, maybe it could help me with complying with recalls or traceback types of requirements, but that there wasn't a sense that it actually could contribute to your bottom line. And our research showed that it does, in fact, that it can improve your inventory tracking. It can reduce overtime hours of your workforce. It can make operational efficiencies, just in terms of freeing up your sales staff to spend more time cultivating their customers. So it can provide a number of different benefits. What we didn't expect was to find the types of barriers that we encountered, and that is that even if you could convince a company that it was worth it, there were still these cultural issues and these technological issues related to interoperability and also with data standards. So those are the types of things that really need to be tackled on a collaborative basis, and that's something that Future Fish is aiming to do, is to convene supply chain players, from fishermen to retail markets to restaurants, and to look at how can we overcome some of these barriers, both the cultural ones and the technological ones, and and what can be done to either grow additional pilot programs to prove or to do a proof of concept that can be scaled, or to just influence other players within the industry to adopt the traceability platforms that are available.
Okay. Well, your guide has a list of a number of different tips and suggestions. I think there are a dozen of them altogether. We're not going to go through them all here, but maybe you could give us the top three best tips that you guys can offer to the industry in general. You know, what are the three things that they really should be looking at to try to improve traceability?
Sure. So one is to know that your needs are your needs, and there is no single platform that's going to serve everyone. So figure out what you need, figure out who you are trading with and what their needs might be and what platforms they're using, and find something that's going to work for you. So we are not recommending any particular technology or platform. We are just saying that traceability is important, and encourage people to take a look at what's out there.
No one size fits all approach.
Go ahead.
No one size fits all approach.
Absolutely.
Right.
Another is to open your mind and your heart to releasing some of the data that you have. So we understand that there's no need to release confidential information, proprietary information, but information about the fish that you are either catching or selling or buying is really something that is important if people are wanting to avoid fraud, avoid buying fish that's been caught illegally, avoid fish that's been caught on slave ships. And so finding a way to hold close to the vest the data that you don't want to release, but then to share the data that is not proprietary is important. And there are all the platforms that we profiled have high security, and they do numerous tests with whatever the protocol is, and they have that capability of allowing people to share what they want to share and not share what they don't want to share. And then the third is a technology platform is not going to solve the problem of bad data or bad process. So it's important to have a line staff or fishing staff or whomever the people are that are touching the fish on board with whatever the traceability technology implementation looks like. And so, and to make sure that you're capturing the right data and it's maintaining integrity through your system. So that was one of the things that we found is that some people think that just because they have an ERP system or just because they have purchased traceability technology that now they're traceable. And it turns out that some of those companies were not capturing the right type of data. They weren't ensuring that the data was truthful throughout, and they had processes that were allowing for errors to occur.
Sounds like it's an organic process. You can't just slap a new policy onto something and then just let it go on autopilot. You got to go back and revisit and make sure you know where your data is coming from. Maybe revisit where your data is coming from to make sure that you're still maintaining a traceable operation.
That's right.
Okay, some interesting advice, some good food for thought. Colleen Howell, thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Colleen Howell is a research co-director with the nonprofit Future of Fish, talking today with us about traceability. The group's new guide is called Getting There From Here. It's available on the group's website, free for download. You can check it out right now. That's all for now, but we'll be back in 2 weeks with another edition of Seafood Source TV, where we bring you more news, information, and insights into the world of the seafood industry. I'm SeafoodSource Editor Sean Murphy saying thanks for watching, and we'll see you online.